Topic 1. Trans/queer women of color were at the forefront of the Stonewall-inspired gay rights movement. However, as political and social victories have been won, those same individuals have been so often been left behind. While white gay men and women have used their proximity to power to advance their own interests and make broken promises to do the same for the rest of the queer community. Is this to be expected? Chaeiry would be unsurprised that these racial divisions exist even within marginalized spaces. Can true solidarity ever exist? And what is the best that can be expected when queer people of color are ostracized from their own ethnic groups as well? All right, yeah, so this has been a big thing where that like throughout like the history of like the gay movement, like there's been this divide, and some people have used it to their advantage, and a lot of people are left behind, right? Especially trans individuals, especially trans people of color, and so I'm wondering, like, is this can there not be a better future or anything? So we'll start with opening statements. Go ahead, Emily.
Yeah, it is a tough subject, I would say. The first part of what you said, I did have a couple questions, because when I got the topics today, I wasn't able to really find anything while I was researching. So I had a couple questions. What interest are you talking about in the question? What promises, and in what ways are white gay men and women in what ways have they used their proximity to power to advance their own interests?
I'm sorry. What, are you asking me?
Yeah, that was just like my initial response that I wanted to say. If anybody wanted to chime in, I don't know how this really goes down, but yeah, that was just basically what I wrote down from the first topic.
Okay, sure. Well, we'll just do opening statements for everyone. Thank you. Stardust, go ahead. And choose me.
Yeah. Well, there are definitely some unique challenges to being somebody who is part of multiple minority groups. I would say, for example, I know a lot of people of color who don't disclose their sexual identity to their families or to their communities because it's just not something you do. Probably won't be accepted, but they choose, they still live the way that they do. They just don't disclose that, right? I know, plenty of queer people of color and queer people of different religions who just choose not to disclose and choose not to let their families or the community that they grew up with see that part of them. So I definitely see that there is there's a unique struggle there, as well as the struggle of like whether we want to acknowledge it or not. There is some racism that has been pretty pervasive within LGBTQ communities. I know that there were there were little clubs, I believe, and I don't know if this is still the case, where it was like preferred to have like white gay men only in one of those clubs, I think. It was like it wasn't like an official club or anything, but it was, so yeah, there's obviously always going to be like these intersections of different types of discrimination that people have to face, and I think just with time, hopefully things get better, but we do have to take into account that a lot of the times communities of color will be a little bit more conservative as well than the general population. So.
Okay, thank you so much, Chaeiry. Go ahead.
I'm a little unprepared on this, but also just uninformed. I am not a member of the LGBTQ plus community. I do consider myself an ally, but I would be lying if I said I understood like the struggles that they go through or the judgment that they deal with on a day-by-day basis in different communities. But as someone who has experienced like racism from within my own community, I do know what it feels like to be on the receiving end of someone's resentment, knowing full and well that we both experience hate, but just on different levels, in different understandings. And I do hope that when people, I think it's normal to feel that sort of resentment for another person that you don't think experiences the level of hate that you do. But I still think that those people deserve empathy and understanding. It's like not always their fault.
Thank you, thank you. Fawn, what?
Yeah, I think intersectionality is one of the most important things to have in, one of the most important talking points, I think, just in generally in leftist spaces, in spaces with people who are from minorities and everything. Like the intersectionality is something that has been pushed, and I think for good reason, because I'll say it. I'm a bisexual. You know, I'm one of those, and I'm also a person of color as well. So like, I don't know. I do see a lot of these spaces. Like maybe there's not like statistics or studies done on the things that were mentioned in this topic, the way that Prime worded it, or Amanda worded it. I'm not exactly sure who wrote the question, but we do see it, I think, within these communities. We see that in some ways I have seen gay white men, I guess, feel as though they can get away with racism because they're already part of a minority group. And I know that's just an anecdotal thing, but I think that's why that intersectionality is such an important thing to be taught. I hope that made sense.
No, it was fine. Thank you so much, Fawn. All right, Zonia.
Hello. I think that obviously you can be a part of a marginalized group, even a significantly marginalized group, and still harbor racial biases and still have divisions fall along racial lines as well as other racial lines. Obviously, from my personal perspective, I can't really speak from a perspective of a person of color, but I can speak from the perspective of someone who is trans, who definitely has been frustrated with the fact that we're often, as the trans community, an afterthought when it comes to pride events and, in particular, activism, legislation, etc. We're kind of like among the last to be considered when it comes to these things, and there's a lot of frustration around it. And there's an organization that I've worked with here where I live that tries to effectively signal boost the trans community in the LGBTQIA plus advocacy groups and such, but it oftentimes just kind of hits a wall, or there's a lot of promises about like, oh yeah, we're going to act on that, we'll get you guys a little bit more platforming for this topic or this issue, right? And then it falls flat or gets pushed aside because there's priorities with the majority of the group who are not actually trans. And this kind of brings me to an interesting part of this topic, which says white gay men and women have used their proximity to power to advance their own interest and made broken promises to do the same for the rest of the queer community. And I thought that was interesting because I think that also brings up an interesting sort of issue of, should we have ever been expecting them to be, meeting out promises to us, right? Because despite us sharing some commonality, hence intersection, some commonality in the issues that we face marginalization on, there's still they're not the same issues. And so if the majority of the community are white gay men, their common issues are going to be the ones that are most represented, and the things that are less common are not going to get as much representation or support. So even leaving out anything like race, you're going to run into this problem. And so this comes back again to, like, from speaking from my perspective with the group that I work with, we find a lot of frustration just trying to get any traction at all on our issues, and more just talk about, well, we need to just have our own movement. We need to run down a path of our own in order to get the right kind of support that we need in representation and advocacy. And so that's kind of where I'm going to come from on this.
Thank you so much, and thank you, King of the Internet, for being so kind and skipping us up to Fawn. We love Fawn, so thank you for helping us out. Yeah, Foon, go ahead. Your initial thoughts.
I think with regards to the color issue, it makes sense why whiter skinned people would have a different response or different experience than their darker skinned peers, primarily because we are still dealing with constant racism all the time. So when we're talking about stuff that still involves race, and especially because since Stonewall, these people who have been basically marginalized and shit on for so long started something that they keep talking about. White gay men have basically taken over. And like Zonio was saying, there are promises that have been made and then nothing has really happened because they don't really need it. Like the white gay people and some lesbians, but not all of them, tend to, they don't have the same struggles. And so when they make those promises, it's not because they themselves relate to it. So it's not a issue that they really need to, it's time sensitive on, whereas if they were darker skinned or something, it would be more prioritized. So.
Okay. Alice?
Sure. So I definitely think this topic is one that we've kind of ended up talking through a lot on other panels. So I think it's nice to see it show up here. I have the opposite problem, I guess, in a sense, of Chaeiry. I am trans, but I'm not black, obviously. I'm very, very, very white. So I'm essentially, in a sense, part of the problem, right? That we're talking about here, in a sense, right? I think the meat of this question is essentially talking about the fact that a lot of the progress that has been made for LGBT rights in general have really been focused on very much whiteness. If you look at what kind of the corporate picture of a gay person is, it's a white man who's, living together with another white man. Like these types of things, I think, are kind of what the meat of this question comes to, is that the accepted LGBT community is not like trans people of color or lesbians or that are people of color. It's literally white men is like what is accepted, publicly. I guess that's kind of the meat of the question, the meat of what the topic is about. And some of the questions in it, should be unsurprised that racial divisions exist. Of course we should be unsurprised, because people are freaking racist all the time. And also white people don't really give a fuck. I don't mean all white people, but white people in power don't give a fuck, and especially white men don't give a fuck. Can true solidarity ever exist? Yeah, maybe. Not really too sure when we'll see that, but maybe. But there's always going to be power, and white men are always going to hold that power, I think. And that the final thing in this question is kind of the one that I'm interested in talking about, but I don't know if we'll be able to get to. Queer people of color are ostracized from their own ethnic groups. That's especially a pretty big problem, as far as I understand, with black communities, for instance, where anti-LGBT attitudes are extremely common. So I definitely I think that's kind of an interesting part of this topic, but I don't know if this is going to be the right platform, we've got a lot of white people on this panel. We might not be the best group to talk about that particular problem. But definitely like this topic overall. Looking forward to diving into all those different pieces.
Okay, Victoria.
I am also part of the LGBTQ community, so I feel like I have a pretty good insight as to what this topic is about, because obviously very pale, very white, but I literally live in the city of everybody. I live in LA, so I was the minority where I grew up, which sounds fucking strange as hell, but I was the minority, so I see the struggle, like anecdotally, of course, of what my friends go through as LGBT people of color. And so I see that, like, so when I came out to my parents, it was totally fine. It was, they were just like, oh, okay, whatever. But it's just the amounts of people that I see who, when they come out to their parents, they're kicked out. They're literally left on the streets. And it's awful that there's nothing done about it. There's nothing you can really do because, hey, how are you going to get, once you can't unring that bell, they're going to know no matter what now. And so this topic is very actually close to me because of just seeing all of the trauma and all of the awful things that happen to, like, people of color who are in the gay community. And it's almost become whitewashed in a sense. Like, people don't talk about Stonewall. When people talk about, like, the gay community, they don't talk about, the actual people who brought the gay community up. They never talk about them. They don't talk about the people of color who were gay that actually brought a lot of accomplishments to our world and to our society and, like, helped us. And it's one of those things where it's taken completely out of context. It's taken out of history. It's taken out of, like, everything. Nobody knows who these people are. Nobody knows who the women who started Stonewall are. Like, can anybody actually name who they are? One person. That's awesome. But it's one of those things where we're part of this community where we don't even know the history of it. We don't even know who brought us the rights, what little rights we do have. So it's a very interesting topic to see, because the roots literally are from people of color. Without them, we wouldn't have the freedoms we have today. We wouldn't have anything.
Just we'll get to it in the open the open panel.
No, I know.
Yeah, all right, go ahead. You guys can jump in.
Go for it.
I was just seeing in chat that people were saying, oh, it's lazy to just criticize white people or men, like, just put it on them. And I do not think that's what we're doing in this topic. We're not here to say it's all the fault of all white people or all white men or all white gay men. That's not it. We're just saying that obviously, because people come from very different walks of life, that racism is generally kind of a blind side that a lot of white people generally have. If they don't have lots of friends who are POC and they don't experience it through their friends, they're not close to someone who's able to explain to them what happens in their everyday life experiences, they might genuinely not think about it. And it's not a bad thing. Like, that's not the reason why we're demonizing people. We're just saying, like, hey, maybe you just haven't thought of it this way. You haven't thought about what life is like for someone else having a completely different experience. So I just wanted to clear that up and say I'm pretty sure this is not just a we hate men, we hate white people train.
Yeah. I mean, so far we haven't demonized anybody yet. We've literally just been stating that the face of the gay community that the public is comfortable with is usually gay white men and lesbian white women. That's it.
It is.
Foon, you want to say something?
Oh no. My brain emptied. I'm sorry.
It's
Oh,
fine.
no.
Go ahead,
I
Emily.
feel that. I feel that.
I just wanted to backtrack, kind of off what Victoria said. I do agree that the LGBT, the face, it has been whitewashed. And they're right. You know, not until today did I even know what the Stonewall was, and I had to look it up. So I agree. I 100% agree, and I didn't really get to make that kind of intro, so I thought I would say that.
I kind of also just want to piggyback, and I'm sorry if somebody had their hand raised, yell at me, and I'll shut up. Like what Fawn said is true. It's like I did, you know, really specifically say, oh yeah, you know, this is what people think of as like the face of LGBT people is white men and white women, as like, you know, gay white men and lesbian white women. That is kind of the public face. What I'm talking about is kind of, in a sense, you know, let's call it corporate, you know, corporate views of LGBT communities, because that's kind of where the power is in our, you know, current society, at least American society, is like corporate power. And if you think back to anything essentially where somebody LGBT has been in the public eye, in kind of like let's say a positive way, it's basically going to be a white guy or a white woman. Is what it's going to be. There's some exceptions, but the general rule is going to be that the, you know, corporate America basically says, look, white people, look at them, buy our stuff.
Otherwise, it's too political, isn't it?
Yeah.
You get those people who are like, wow, when did they go and make, I don't know, Skittles political because it's like a black guy? You know, do you know what I mean? Like that's the sort of critique that you get if the face is someone different than the usual.
Right.
I feel like this is like a different conversation though, only in the sense that like now we're not talking about the original question. Now we're kind of like and my fault is like it's more of like America has a problem with corporate interests essentially, which is true, but it's not the topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So have any of you actually experienced this? I experienced this by like within the gay community, like not, but even if you aren't necessarily like for instance a trans person, right? If you're in the queer community, have you actually seen this happen? Foon, do you have?
Yeah, something that I was. Can you hear me just to make sure?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Something that I was going to say before is something that I hadn't really noticed. You know, when some people say like, oh, it's mostly queer white men, or oh, what are you saying? It's not all queer white men, because when you think about the queer white women, usually what, at least like my experience as well, because I'm technically gender fluid and pansexual, which is, I don't say anything because it's not really considered. But in terms of like treatment, when like women come out with, or feminine presenting people come out with like, oh, I'm this and I'm this, suddenly they're torn down. They use all like the feminine derogatory names and slurs. But if it's a guy, even if they're like feminine, they're still treated differently. Like they're still given some type of respect, I guess. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but I don't know if any of you have had like the white gay experience.
Can we like just acknowledge that just because a group of people maybe doesn't suffer as much as another group of people doesn't mean that like they're the enemy?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd think that would.
Absolutely.
So, one thing that I thought about maybe drawing some attention to is, well, again, it's hard for me to speak specifically for communities of color, right? But there is quite a big problem of just in general with any kind of a movement you have when there is a majority of people, like I was mentioning earlier, and they have certain shared issues. Those are going to become the priority, and they're going to take precedence over everything else. right? So that trickles down to affect everybody who doesn't have as many of those issues aligning with the majority. And so obviously, like if you're trans, a lot of the issues that you struggle with are not the same issues that gay men and lesbian women struggle with. And likewise, if you're a person of color, a lot of issues that you struggle with are not going to be the same as those of white people, right? And so maybe if we can kind of take the discussion down that kind of a path to talk a little bit about how it is to overcome the hurdle of the majority getting the bulk of the representation and having their issues prioritized.
Right. I could agree with that because I've kind of I'm sorry. Did I interrupt somebody?
Oh no, I was just agreeing. I just put in a little, yep, I agree.
Well, I was gonna say that I've kind of like, especially as somebody in the community, like even within the gay community, the LGBTQ community, there's even like people who will tell bi people, for example, that they're not gay enough. Because if you have a bi person who's in a heteronormative relationship, oh well, no, you're not, you don't like women or you don't like men, you're just straight. You just haven't chosen yet. Or if they're in a, gay relationship, oh no, you don't like the opposite sex, you're just a lesbian or you're a gay person. So it's like even within our own community there's a lot of erasure of like who we are as people, whereas like comparing it to like the people of color, like especially the Black community, if you're light skinned, oh, you're not Black enough. I dated a half Black, half white, and he told me he constantly struggled with his identity because he was like, well, he's not Black enough to hang out with the Blacks. He's not white enough to hang out with the whites. So where is he supposed to go? Like, he's like torn between this, like, who am I as a person? Who am I supposed to be? And I feel like that's such a great comparison to like people in the gay community, because it's just like, if you're a lesbian and you're, like a butch lesbian, okay, well, you're lesbian enough. But if you're a super ultra femme lesbian, are you really a lesbian? Are you sure you're a lesbian? If you're, a super effeminate like gay man, oh, okay, you're perfect. You're obviously very gay. But if you're if you're super masculine as a gay man, oh, are you sure you don't like women? Are you sure you haven't had the right woman yet? Like, there's very presenting, like, superficial things that we look at when we try to identify somebody who's in, like, the community. So that's just, like, my kind of comparison to where it's just, like, you have people who are in the, like, Black community who struggle with that identity, too. So that's just kind of the comparison I can throw in there.
Fine.
Absolutely. I agree with everything Victoria is saying. And it really hit home for me because obviously, I identify as bi, a pan as well as something that would also apply to me. I'm just used to the label bi, I guess, and it's very much one of those things where it's like, but you're not gay enough. And I'm also biracial. I think that's why I like the term bisexual, because I'm like, I'm just bi everything. And I'm half Polynesian, and I get that no matter where I go, people are going to ask, where are you from? So I've lived in this country my entire life in New Zealand. People always ask me, where are you from? And then I go to where my dad is from, my dad's village, and people will ask me, where am I from? It doesn't matter where I go in the world. There will not be a comfortable space where people will not see me as an outsider. Because of my looks. And that's not necessarily like, oh, woe is me. That's just a fact of a lot of, I think, biracial people experience that, of like, people can't quite put their finger on you, of like, I don't know what's going on there. And I think that can also be an experience for people who are maybe non-binary as well. Like I'm also non-binary, but I am comfortable with looking very femme. But maybe people who want to look a little bit more androgynous also experience this sort of thing. Like, I think there's a lot of crossover in the LGBT community And also, we have a lot of members of people of color from all over the place in the LGBT community that I feel don't get the representation. I don't know. Is this a good time to share an anecdote as well as what Prime was talking about? So there was this rather uncomfortable experience that I had. So I was at a gay club in New Zealand, specifically like a gay bar, and I met this very attractive, lovely woman, and you know, we were flirting, we were hitting it off, we were having a really nice time, and you know, we started kissing and everything. Again, we're in a gay club, and I actually got interrupted from kissing her by someone grabbing me on the shoulder and like pulling me apart. And it was these two guys who were islanders, so Pacific Islanders like I am, and they were incredibly intoxicated, and they said, "Whoa, that is so hot. Are you guys lesbians?" We're in a gay club, by the way. Like, not that you should do that in any situation, but this is specifically one of the most well-known gay clubs in the city, if not in the country. And they were very in my face. And when they saw me, they stopped and they were like, "Where are you from?" Because they could tell that I was also an islander, and they suddenly became very, very interested in where I was from, because they'd seen me kissing a girl, and they probably didn't think that doesn't go with what we know of island girls, you know, like that doesn't go with it. And luckily the girl I was with was much braver than me, and actually stood up to them and she said, "You don't have to know. She doesn't have to tell you where she's from. Like, fuck off." And I was so scared. So I was so grateful that she did that. But the experience did really freak me out, because they kept on coming back to me and I couldn't really have a good time. To the point when I was leaving with my friend, we got into the Uber, and then one of the guys came out of the club, saw me in the Uber, and actually went up and opened the door to like lean it. I don't know what he was doing. He was incredibly intoxicated, but he was like, "You." And then the bouncer was like, "Hey, buddy, let's just leave." But yeah, I don't know what his purpose was, but it was quite terrifying. And I feel like, again, I just feel like that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't if it wasn't him recognizing me as being a part of his racial community, but not a part of, him clearly not being LGBT.
I think that was
anyway. That was my experience.
Really interesting. I really liked. No, that was fun. That was super interesting because it touches on a lot of different things. One, there was it an article I was reading? I forget. I don't know. I get information from places. But about how straight people quote unquote invade gay spaces, right? And like, is this a thing that the community should be worried about, or and what to do about it? Like, I mean, it's like a club that's not, because we could say that you could have a straight club and then like gay people are invading that club, right? So if you,
but that's
if you
like every club.
Yeah, I know. So the point is,
Yeah.
like, if you make that delineation that like, well, then these people can't be here, right? Well, then they'll do that on the other side, right? They'll say that to you. Well, you can't be in our space as well, right? And it's like, but don't we need a place where we can connect? And I know here in the States, there's like been several articles about how like gay bars, specifically lesbian bars, have almost completely disappeared. Right? There's like a handful, like a handful, like left in the country, and it's like those physical spaces are gone. But part of that's because, well, one, the pandemic helped kill that, but also part of it was because of digital spaces, right? Which were much more efficient for people to meet each other. But is there something like lost without those that physical contact? You know, that place where you can meet up and not just like data, like for the purpose of dating each other, but just, you know, camaraderie, right? So lots of interesting things you bring up, Fawn. Zonia?
Yeah, so there's a couple of interesting things I wanted to touch on there. One is in chat, BK Messiah was asking, was saying this is in a gay bar, and then saying that they thought it was weird that it was still happening in 2021. But one of the things that is probably never really going to end is straight men in particular fetishizing lesbians, two girls together, as well as also fetishizing trans women is another big problem. So when I've gone to gay bars and stuff like that, I've been hit on by a lot of straight men that are going there specifically to look for trans women.
Do they hit you with the Drake line?
What's the
no,
line?
Not yet.
The what?
What's the Drake line? I don't know.
The Drake line where he says, if you're a lesbian, I'm a lesbian.
Oh my god.
You know, because
that makes
straight men
sense,
can't
bro.
understand the concept of like what a lesbian is.
Oh no.
So the other thing that you've got there is that at least many years ago, so in the 90s when I first went to gay clubs and such, the spaces weren't exclusively gay, though obviously the majority of the people there were gay and or lesbian. But there were plenty of straight people who would go there with their friends and hang out. So I don't think it was ever really intended to be that kind of a space. Not at least in the general gay bars. In some locations, some bars and clubs would be a little bit more exclusive, and oftentimes it was more for a safe space, right? But most of them were pretty open to anybody going in. So I wouldn't even call it invading, except I would draw the line at if you're going there to basically fetishize people who have no interest in you fetishizing them. For example, a straight guy going into a gay bar to fetishize two women kissing, right? So that's where you start getting into a problem area, and you start that's when the space is then, in my opinion, invaded.
But like I mean, if it's a guy though, like a straight guy coming into a gay bar, like with lesbians anyway, like one way or the other, eventually they're gonna come, even if you're not quote unquote fetishizing anyone, we're gonna approach, right? And that was the problem that specifically in that article, I think it was an article, that I read, you know, that, you know, we specifically are coming here so we don't have to deal with that, right? And so we have people who we know are gay, so we don't have to like guess at this, like, oh, is she into me, right? Or deal with like straight men, you know, approaching them, because, you know, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's why there are some bars that are more exclusive. In particular, that tends to be along the lines, generally speaking, of lesbian bars that are like exclusively lesbian. There are some gay bars as well that are exclusively gay men, but it's rarer. So usually the gay bars tend to be a little bit more open to, you know, and you go there knowing that it's going to be a mixed crowd. And then there are the more exclusive spaces where you go there expecting to have a non-mixed crowd that's going to be more people like yourself, so you don't have to deal with that kind of stuff.
Well, I know plenty of you know, my straight girlfriends will go to gay bars because they just want to dance and they don't want to get hit on. So, well, by men, you know, if they got hit on by women, they would feel a little bit less worried, which, you know, is obviously like not a very nice stereotype, but it's less likely to happen generally. And I'm like, I don't really blame them for wanting to go to a bar just to dance rather than get hit
Is that
on.
irritating?
What?
I don't know. So if you are bisexual or if you are a lesbian and you go to an outing that's like meant to be able to mingle with people like you and to constantly like run into straight women who are not there for like the same reasons you are. Does that hurt the experience or anything?
I do. I mean, for me, I feel the need to always make intentions very clear, to be like, you know, when I hooked up with that girl at that club at that night, she said to me, "Do you like girls or boys?" Very plainly. And I said, "I like both." I said, "Do you like girls or boys?" You know, like, and she said, "I just like girls." And then it was very much like, okay, so we're here because we like each other. But that's also me. I always want to be very clear of my intentions, because I just also wouldn't, like, I'm okay with being friends with you know, just being friends with someone who is also bi or attracted to women, or, you know, attracted to femme people, like all of that sort of thing. So I don't really find it annoying or anything, but I can understand how that can be annoying. But I'm also like, I'm an overly cautious person. That's just me.
I don't think. Oh, go ahead. No. Go right ahead. I'll go after.
I was just gonna say, it's never really bothered me. I've always like approached. It's always been women. I've always approached women, and usually my first thing is like, my eyes will just catch something or someone, and my first thing is, "Oh my god, I need to tell you how beautiful you are," and like that's like the first thing I say. And usually at that point, they tell me if, you know, they're straight or something. But the few times that I have met straight women, it's fine, but some of them have gotten upset that I asked, that like I approached them. But it's only been a few. Yeah, because like some of them, they'll go there because, one, they want to get away from men, and two, I don't know why, they just like the atmosphere, and they're in like they're with their girls usually at the time. Sometimes they're drunk, and so it's just it's really like uncommon.
That's incredible. No, that's like, first of all, that's so crazy. You're in a lesbian bar. You're like, wait, what? What are you doing? Like, what are you thinking? Of course not. Don't touch me. Like, what?
Right? It's like, I'm sorry. Oh man.
And it's interesting, Fawn, what you said before is that like, I haven't gone to a gay bar yet, but I used to go to gay parties, and it's for a similar reason. But not because like, oh, girls are. I mean, yes. I mean, girls are always coming up to me. And it's sometimes I just want to relax, you know, right? But it's because, from a straight guy's perspective, it like eliminates the pressure, right? You know, it's like there's no women, there's no reason to perform or anything like that, right? Just like, I'll just relax. I'm just gonna have fun, and I've had like a lot of fun at gay parties. Like, I used to go to them all the time in college. Like, it was, and they were so nice. I mean, I kind of
because it's like you're just hanging with the dudes. You know, you're not like
guys being guys.
Guys being guys. Dudes. Sometimes making out. It's cool, right?
It's fun. If it's with socks on, it's
kiss the homies good night
before they go to bed.
Always,
absolutely, always.
Sometimes sing them a lullaby. Tuck them in.
Yeah.
Normalize kissing homies, honestly. Seriously, come on.
Genuinely, that not even as a meme. Like,
no, serious.
Like, here's the thing. I hate this. One of the biggest things, the biggest issue I have when it comes to the LGBTQ community. Women can have their bi phase or their gay phase, or they oh, you know, you can. It's like, it's so much more accepted for women to be like more physically like touching with their female friends and stuff, like to hug them, to smooch them on the cheek, to like even just lay in a bed with another female friend and not it be seen as sexual. But the second a guy experiments, the second a guy even thinks about a dick, oh, you're gay, you're branded as gay forever, you are forever branded as gay.
I don't know about this one. I don't know about this one. Anytime I'm with like a girl in public or something, we're just assumed that we're gonna make out at like any fucking moment, completely sexualized. Like, I don't know. This might just be different experiences.
Right, because like for me, my experiences is like it's a little more accepted for women to be more touchy feely with their girlfriends.
Definitely
like their
accepted, but
friends.
it's still like completely sexualized.
Yeah, it's still like there's a line between like being homosocial, right? That's what you would call it, is homosocial, where it's like acceptable for you to be affectionate with people you're friends with and who happen to be the same gender, and then it actually being objectified, like Chaeiry is saying. So you know, people expecting you and your best friend to make out at any party or something like that, right? So
Right, and I could see that, but like on the other hand, where it's so awkward for men to even like hug their friend, like for a man to hug another male friend, it's like frowned upon. It's looked on as like weird or like homoerotic, or like, oh, are you gay to show affection? Are you gay to like actually show physical affection that's platonic to a friend?
Yeah, that makes me sad.
I did want to mention that this new generation coming up, like Gen Z predominantly, but like the younger ones, like still teenagers and stuff, they're so affectionate with each other more than previous gens. And it's so nice to see because they don't have that predisposed, like, I guess I would call it toxic mindset of like, I would never, like the jokes of like, only if you have socks on, bro, it's not gay. You know, and it's so nice because there will literally be cuddle puddles of guys just hugging the bros, and it's so nice. And they don't have like any flack for it, which is so nice.
Right.
Yeah, I'm an actor, so all of my guy friends are very huggy, touchy, feely people. They do not care, but I'm also very aware that that's not normal. That's just theater kids.
From what I've heard from, and this might just be like one perspective, what I've heard from one person is that a lot of the reason why men aren't affectionate with each other is because of the stereotype that that women will put on men, specifically women that would be sexually attracted to them potentially, right? Like it's the same thing about like men being vulnerable emotionally with female partners. It's basically you're supposed to be strong and you're supposed to be like the rock and all of that, and the moment that you let your guard down, then it's like, well, the partner is not prepared for that, I guess.
I have an anecdote to go on that. So one of my friends who I also used to hook up with is like a bi guy, right? And I wouldn't say that he's like overly femme, you know, but like he is a little bit more femme leaning, like in his appearance and everything. But it's not like, you know, it's not like you would look at him and immediately go like gay, like stereotype. But he told me that he has a lot of experience where like he will be interested in a woman and the woman will be like, oh no, you're like my gay best friend. And he's like, well, but like I'm bi. But there's a lot of that erasure happening because he's just slightly more femme. And I'm like, I don't understand that, because I'm like, I think he's hot as fuck. Like I think he's like very conventionally attractive and like everything that I think like a straight woman would enjoy. But I do think that from that experience, I'm like, oh wow, people really do have a problem with femme guys, where to me, I feel like femme guys are attractive, but I'm also very attracted to femme people in general. So,
well, it's not even like femme guys like outward appearance, right? It's just men being vulnerable in general, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean, is like showing more feminine traits as well, like not even necessarily wearing dresses and, you know, stereotypical things like that, but just being more able to talk about their emotions or like show, you know, I feel like sometimes it's just like being more comfortable with being yourself and like being a little bit silly and goofy, not having to like be all staunch and yeah, like that all the time. I'm like, that is so unattractive to me. But I understand that it is probably put into a lot of people's brains that that is attractive because, oh, so mysterious man, I can fix him. You know what I mean?
Alice, she's got her hand up, so I want to hear from Alice. I disagree with some of what Fawn's saying, but I'm curious what Alice is going to say first.
Oh, I want to hear it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing your disagreement because it's always interesting when you disagree. Anyway, all I was going to say is, so you know, being trans, I've had the male dating experience. I've had the straight man dating experience. For whatever that, you know, counts for. But essentially, my experience was I came out to my partner at the time as bi, as saying, you know, I'm attracted to men. And she was like, I have to be honest, like she was emotionally, you know, abusive to me overall. But like when I came out to her as bi, she was like, oh my God, you're not going to be attracted to me anymore. You're not going to, you know, she was super, super toxic about it. I'm like, sure, like that's an anecdote. And, you know, she had other problems with me, but like that really soured me like entirely in all of my relationships for being honest about like my sexuality or my gender identity even more. I was already, you know, repressing, and that made it just way worse. There's definitely like a weird thing, at least in, like people my age. I'm 30, I'm almost 30. You know, there's a weird thing of like, you know, seeing, you know, bi men as essentially like, well, they're just gay light. It's just very weird. There's definitely like some problems. There's a lot of toxicity just societally, for like bi men, and obviously even worse if you're a straight man and you want to like be at all sensitive in any way, you're seen as gay. You know, it's definitely difficult.
Yeah, Fawn. So your assertion of what exactly you were saying that, well, you know, you like you know, feminine individuals, and that's why you suspect for this person that you're talking about. I don't know, maybe give him a name. Let's call him Bob. I don't know, Bob, right?
Bob, yeah,
right.
Love it.
Sure. Why you would have trouble, but like I mean, I think I would understand why those women wouldn't be particularly into them, right? Like, a lot of men like quote unquote, you know, like the femme presenting woman, right? And you could say it's because of media or whatever, right? But they like that aesthetic, that attitude, or whatever you want to call it, right? And you could take some woman who is, you know, generally attractive, but just like give her that butch presentation, and you'd be less interested, right? So it wouldn't just make sense that for those women, like this person isn't getting off the signals, right? The persona that they're looking for, like the characteristics, and so they would not be attracted.
Oh yeah,
initially.
I don't think it's like, oh wow, if you like, I don't understand anyone who wouldn't be attracted to Bob. Like it's more like if it's more the erasure for me. The erasure, the jumping to like, but he's gay when he has specifically said, I am a bi man, and like only being able to see someone who is bi and a man and femme as gay, which I think Victoria also brought up earlier, was just like there's that was I think the issue more, was that it was like you see a lot of this erasure going on, and I hope that it is not necessarily for very toxic reasons, but I feel like it also potentially could be in that we don't accept men who show more emotions and are more, I would say, like more comfortable in being a little bit silly or you know, I don't exactly know how to put it, but it's just like a vibe that like I find very attractive, but is probably not like typical masculinity that we see. It's like the opposite. But I'm like, I think it's cool when I don't know. So much of masculinity is so like walls and like stoicism, and it's just a bit cringe to me, really. But that's all personal stuff.
Well, two things there, right? Like, I didn't see your hand up, sorry. I'll go to you next then. And Zonia, do you have your hand up as well?
Zonia.
Did you also?
I think I was going to, but I'm going to pass. But I think
Okay.
Chaeiry might have had her hand up for a moment.
No.
Yeah, and just to be clear, so make sure I can see it, right? Like palms up, facing the camera, not like, you know, this or something like that, right? Yeah, okay. That's very helpful when you do it that way. Thank you. All right. Sometimes like it's just difficult for me to see. But okay. Two things, I guess, to you, Fawn. I think these signals are just a shorthand, right? Now you can say that these shorthands can in the end be damaging, but I think there are shorthands that we all use. I saw this video many years ago of a lesbian woman, and she was saying that, you know, she wanted you know, a certain attention from women, but she just was not getting it. And I think she was dressing in a certain manner, like a more feminine type manner, right? And then she like literally decided, I'm just gonna change my wardrobe, right? So she was like more tank tops and jeans, right? And then she's like, oh, well then she got all the attention exactly that she was looking for, right? She put out signals as to what she was looking for, what she was about, right? And then people responded to those signals, because that's just kind of how that works, right? I mean, maybe we can argue that it shouldn't work that way, but like that's just like we use
I know
visual
what you mean.
cues. Yeah.
Again, I'm laughing because my best friend was like, so my best friend is also bi, and she had like this conversation with this guy at work or whatever, and he was like, "Wait, you're a lesbian?" Because she, I don't know, was like telling a story about hooking up with a girl, and she's like, "I wear vegan docs." Like. Exactly. I'm like, you guys get it. You guys know exactly what that means. And like this poor little straight dude that she was talking to had no fucking clue what was on about. And she was like, I wear vegan dogs. Like it's so obvious. And like,
girl, look at my fucking shoes.
Yeah, I'm like, and literally that. You've got a point, Prime. There are things that you can wear that to other people in the community, it can be super fucking obvious.
I don't know what vegan docs are. And I have been that straight guy.
Exactly.
I have been that straight guy who has approached that lesbian woman at a party, and not like a gay party, but like just like a general party. And oh man, it sucks. How was I supposed to know? Anyway,
no, it's funny. Like
yeah.
it's like in a sweet, endearing way. It's like in the in group. If you know, you know, you know.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Stardust.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to bring up like when we talk about bi erasure, I think that it's important to look at it from a multifaceted view, right? So we've got like heteronormativity, right, where it's just easier to live life as a straight, as a straight woman, even if you are attracted to women. It's easier to just live that way, right? There's also the bi erasure that happens because it's easier when you're from certain ethnic groups or certain communities to not disclose that side of you, right? Like for me, I would never I would never disclose to anybody outside of my immediate family my attraction to females and males, because it's just not seen in the best light. It's just not seen as the automatic assumption is that you're promiscuous, which is whether that's in my community or outside in the general community, it's that you're promiscuous, and it's like I'm not. I'm like monogamous as fuck, you know, or that you're into polyamory or into polygamy or whatever, right? I'm not. I'm not into any of those things. I'm like I'm super fucking as far as like my dating
Oh, you're
preferences
insecure?
go. No, I'm not insecure.
I'm just kidding. It's a point
you're
that I heard
making a
about
joke.
monogamous
You're making
people. Yeah.
Yes, you're making a joke. I know the joke. That's very funny. Yes, I like that.
My bad.
A joke.
So yeah, I just like you know, I just like one person. That's it, you know. So I don't really disclose my sexuality to people. I find that these assumptions just are super stupid and make dating super stupid. And then yeah, on top of it all, it's just easier to live life in a very heteronormative way, right? So yeah.
Go ahead.
That's all I had to say about it.
Speaking of vegan docs, flannels.
Yes.
Silence? Really?
Yep.
It's
No,
fine.
I said yes.
It's fine.
No, I 100%. Yeah, flannels are.
I know exactly what you're saying right now. Show me your nails.
Right? Oh my god.
Show me your nails. You know,
Oh,
is
shit,
she?
right.
Anyway,
But-
sorry.
I was actually gonna add on top of what Stardust said. You're right. It is a lot easier to live in a heteronormative way. It is easier because I've had experiences of like, especially, and it's. I hate to say it this way because this is purely anecdotal, but when you date a straight man as a woman, and you tell them, "Oh, I also like women," for some fucking reason, that automatically opens the door to them to be like, "Oh, so threesome."
Yeah.
Or are you gonna
It's so
cheat on
fucking
me?
annoying,
Or
bro.
are you-
No, I
yeah.
never wanted one of those, bro.
Yep.
Yeah, like
Oh, you're gonna go
Right.
for a girl
Oh,
now?
Right. So it's either threesome, it's you're gonna cheat on me, or oh well, or and I don't. To me, this personally hurts me just because it's part of that like bi erasure where it's like, so if you do cheat on a woman, oh, it's not really cheating.
It's not really cheating.
It's
Yeah.
not really cheating.
I'm sorry,
I
but
hate
it
that
has.
shit.
It has to be. Like, if you think that kissing another man is cheating, then kissing another woman has to be cheating too.
Bro,
Yes.
when the
Otherwise,
guy...
it's problematic.
Sorry.
It just means you're
No, you go.
insecure.
Sorry.
I was gonna say, when the dude is like, oh, like,
Yeah.
when they have an open relationship, and the dude's like, oh yeah, if it's other girls, it's fine, but you can't go to other men.
Yeah, that is.
Uh,
I don't count that as a proper open relationship. I'm like, that just sounds controlling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen,
That
when
just sounds controlling.
we turn to open panel, I really hope that a bisexual man hops in here because I would love to hear if they have a female partner and that female partner does the same thing. Because,
right.
like,
Oh, true.
how uneven is this?
yeah.
Yeah, we're
So
just trashing
true.
that
Well,
right
hold
now.
on, hold on. But wait a minute.
Hit me with it. What are you confused about, Prime?
Do you want to bring
Men-
back
men-
to like the
men,
beginning?
Go under the bus, men. Okay.
He has the bus.
I'm driving the
Get
bus,
on.
and you've heard it here first. This is an anti-man panel now.
Put that
Officially.
in the title. That'll go really well.
Just put
Yeah.
the
Right?
You
Yeah,
better
we're gonna
hop on
flood
the
in.
open panel and defend yourselves.
Just take it
Right.
to all things misandry.
Yeah.
And we can
So
do, like,
anyway,
cute
yeah.
poses, like-
Speaking of white gay people and other POC queer people, yeah, that topic.
Yeah. So
Can I actually swerve the topic into that direction
hold
real
on,
quick?
hold on. Yeah. So, Fawn, could you repeat the first thing you had said previously? Like, I was gonna respond to you, but like it literally flew out of my head.
Oh, honey, I do not remember what I
Okay.
said.
Oh, you can't call
You were
people honey.
talking.
I'm
No,
so
you were talking about
sorry.
within the open relationship. Or someone else was talking about open relationship.
Oh, Chaeiry
Oh.
was talking about the thing with straight
About-
men being bothered by a bisexual female partner who would sleep with another man in an open relationship.
Whereas if it's a girl, it's okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
said that if they think it's only okay if they sleep with, if they're in an open relationship and they say it's only okay if you sleep with other women, but if you sleep with another man, then that's not okay. I said that's not an open relationship, that's control.
That's right,
being
you said that.
controlling.
Sorry, I don't know why I attributed that to Chaeiry.
No, Chaeiry brought it up. I'm not sure if Prime was talking. Yeah,
I posed the question of like the fact that you will have a guy, like a straight relationship between a man and a woman, where the woman, I guess, announces that she's bisexual, so the man automatically assumes, oh, I'm gonna get a threesome, 2 girls and me, like off the bat. And I just like wondered if there's any bisexual men who have like gotten in a relationship with a woman and told her like I'm bisexual, and then all of a sudden the woman's like, oh hell yeah, I'm gonna get 2 dicks. Like I just don't think that we sexualize each other in like the same way.
Or I would
But then
also
maybe
like,
I'm confused. I don't know.
I would also like to know your other point if the bi man has experienced also maybe a fear of being cheated on, like double,
Yeah.
you know, like promiscuity.
Yeah. Okay.
Like,
sorry.
I would wonder.
Now
if
I
that
remember
would
what I was
be
going
the
to
same.
say. Yeah, because when it comes to bi people, right? So you guys were talking about that cheating thing, but I've heard again and again, especially from lesbians, but I think this is also true for the gay male community, right? I mean, when you're dealing with a bisexual person within that relationship, that they are also insecure. That's the part that was interesting. Yeah, that they are also insecure. They are also saying to that person, "Well, are you going to go back, right? Like to the opposite sex, right?" And I think they have more reason to be fearful of that than a straight man with a bi woman, because like you said before, like or people have said before, that's literally just easier to be straight, to be within those straight relationships, right? You have that privilege. So bisexual people, you know, they kind of get hate from within the gay community because they have that out, you know, that they don't have to, like if they wanted to, they can step back into that heteronormal, that comfort of the heteronormativity. So that was my pushback specifically on that, and that like this isn't like a straight thing of just like straight guys who are quote unquote insecure. This is, you know, everyone, right? And such
absolutely.
people, yeah.
Bi erasure is, I think, the worst within the community. Actually, like in a viewing it in a negative way. I think it's worse from, you know, people not in the community fetishizing it, which is very uncomfortable. But Stardust, you're
Stardust, please.
I cannot concentrate. All I can see is your big, beautiful eyes. I love them so much.
Sorry.
They are normal size eyes.
They are normal size
Yeah, they're
eyes.
pretty
I
normal
don't
size.
appreciate you calling my
I'm
eyes
so
fat.
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so
Your
sorry.
eyes fat.
Be upon
Girl, your eyes are thick.
eyes.
With 2 C's.
Eyes with 2 C's.
And now I can't remember what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No.
Bisexual racial within the gay community.
Oh yeah, it's just it's. I feel like it's. Well, I think maybe not so much that it's more negative, but it hurts more. It hurts more when you get told by someone within your community, like, you know, maybe a friend who is lesbian. It really hurts if they tell you you're not really queer though, like you're not really bi, like you just like hooking up with girls at parties, like that's not really what bisexuality is, like, and that just hurts so much more from coming from a group that you thought you could be a part of. It's the same experience that I've had with you know, my own family members calling me a palangi, which is like a white person. Technically it's a foreigner, so it doesn't really mean, but like calling me a white person when I'm, you know, biracial. It's that same, people, you know, in the in-group can hurt you the most, I think, because you feel like these are minority spaces. I don't belong out in the big majority of people. I feel uncomfortable there. I thought I would be welcomed in these smaller spaces. And then you're not seen as valid enough. And I think, but also it's like you do feel pressure to perform as straight in the everyday world, you know, like people can feel that from their families. It's like, well, I'm bisexual, but I could never marry a woman because my family wouldn't approve.
Hold on, I have a question. So this judgment that people might feel when they go out in the world, is it ever sometimes in your head that like other people care more about like what's going on with you or how you're presenting than you do?
I think everyone's insecurities are, absolutely. I think everyone everyone thinks that everyone's looking at their flaws more than they are in the real world. And I think it's really hard to break that down. Like, obviously, if you are particularly insecure about something, you know, you wake up one day, you've got a giant pimple on your forehead, and you're like, shit, that's all I can see. That's all everyone else is gonna see.
I have one like right now. You're triggering me.
And I can't see it.
I don't see one.
And I can't see it. But like, obviously, if you're walking around, you're like, oh my God, I have to go do all of these things today, and all they're gonna see is like my giant pimples. So like, either you cover it up, or you're like, oh, I just have to mention it before anyone else does, because otherwise it's like awkward. And it's like, and they'll be like, I didn't even notice. Like, people care about themselves more than they do about what other people are doing.
And
unless they're like some special kind of cuckoo.
I also feel like we are moving to like a more socially progressive world. I don't know, like society. And
I hope so.
Like, that's why most of what I try to do now is like just be myself unapologetically, like all of the terrible, all of the wonderful parts about me, because as honest and open as I am about myself, like that's the type, like the people who vibe with that will come to that. And then like, because when I hear stuff like what Alice said about like her last relationship, like that fucking breaks my heart. And it hurts being around people that are going to be so judgmental about you and about like your learning curve, and like holding back who you are to satisfy those people is such a hard cycle to fucking break. And it literally just forces you into this corner of a person that you don't want to be. And so like worrying about how everyone else out there is going to receive you, like I think that's a really natural way to feel and to react. But my God, I think a lot of people, so long as you don't get like the hate and the hurt that comes with it, I think you will attract a lot better people in your life if you are just like unapologetically yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I do understand how that can be scary though at the same time.
Yeah, for sure.
That. Yeah, like depending on how much, you know, how different, I guess, or the kind of area that you live in could be vastly different to how comfortable you might feel.
Yeah, but sometimes it literally just takes finding one person that's like you to just make it through that like uncomfortable stage of feeling alone, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you know what I found really interesting? I'm sorry if I'm talking too much. I just thought of another anecdote. What I found really interesting, because obviously I've experienced a lot of bi-erasure in my life. Just, you know, people just not thinking you're valid enough because you're in a heteronormative relationship. But when I came out, I'm not very talkative about my gender. I find my gender like experience a very personal kind of thing, so like sometimes I feel awkward talking about it. But yeah, I'm non-binary. I identify as like agender. But I'm like comfortable being femme. And when I came out as that to like my friends and stuff, I did have a few people be like, wait, I don't understand, but like you're not gonna like change how you look. I'm like, no, this is just that's just who I am and things. And actually, the people that I found were the most wonderful and most accepting were the trans people in my life. They were so supportive, and just like in like a little way, in just little ways that I didn't realize. Like they were immediately like accepting of me. Like I remember in my drama class, I remember my trans friend like sat next to me and was like, "Oh yeah, we're the only like trans kids in the class," and I was like, "You just think that you just accept that I'm one of you, even though I like will still wear a skirt? Like, thank you. Like that meant like so much to me."
Yeah. Because hold on, just to non-binary does fall under the transgender umbrella, right? I think
I wouldn't want to say that I've had trans experiences though. Do you know what I mean? Like that's just not something that I put on me, but to have acceptance from someone who had like a gender struggle as well, or being a different gender, made me feel better.
You say that you haven't had a transgender experience, but you have, in the same way that I've had the experience of a woman. I wasn't born that way, right? But I've had some shared experiences with people who were born female and still identify as women. I share some experiences. You share some experience with the trans people. So like no matter what you don't have to present super masculine to be okay as like being non-binary. You don't have to present androgynously to be non-binary. You have a trans experience. The fact that you're
cry, Alice.
The fact that you're struggling to even say that you are trans, you've just shown you have a trans experience. You are trans enough. Like there's always going to be discussions and infighting but like it's okay. You can say you're trans. You are non-binary. You do not identify as the gender that you were, assigned at birth. You are trans. One of my partners is also has talked about being like aligning the same way as you do, Fawn, and they've had the same kind of like fear and of coming out that like as non-binary, and I'd love to see that not be a struggle for people, but I'm glad that you've had like good accepting experiences from like people in your life, and like I hope you get more of that. Like normalizing non-binary people is very, very important.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wouldn't ever want to worry about speaking for a group, like a group of people that maybe, I don't know. It's all about acceptance, isn't it? It's like it's always hard to accept yourself or feel accepted by other people.
But about that acceptance, right? So when it comes to bi individuals, right? If you are bi and have, always been within the heterosexual, relationships, right? But have had same-sex attraction, like, are you part of the community, right? Like, if you've never outwardly expressed it, other than to say that, am I okay?
Yes.
Absolutely, you are. I think there are a lot of things that can hold people back from ever experiencing those things, like maybe the way that they grew up, or just like the area that they're in, like friends and family being around them. Maybe they felt too shy. Maybe they haven't met the right person that they feel like they want to take that step with. I don't think that we can gatekeep, like that.
Or even being in a committed relationship that just happens to be a straight committed relationship. You're not gonna just like realizing that you're attracted to like the same gender as well doesn't suddenly make you stop being attracted to the person you were attracted to. It's like that's another reason that you're part of the community, is like being bi does not mean you have to sleep with men and women, or like you don't have to act on your bisexuality for you to be bisexual.
How much attraction?
A lot of it comes down.
Sorry, go ahead, Sonia.
I was going to say I think a lot of it also comes down to when you've got a community that accepts you. It makes you feel more comfortable about actually going ahead and going forward and experiencing, your feelings that you have for people of the same sex. So I've known a lot of people over the years who were very quiet about being bi and kept it to themselves. And once they started hanging around with people in the LGBT community, they started feeling more comfortable about opening up about these things. And then they, are like, okay, I feel like I can speak about this now. I feel I can maybe even go and explore and meet someone and see how this works for me. So I think being part of the community has a lot more to do with what the community provides than in terms of acceptance and camaraderie. And so even if you haven't gotten the opportunity to express that side of yourself, being accepted into the community gives you the opportunity to be more comfortable with that side and express it.
When do you account as bi, though, right? Because there are straight people who are straight their entire lives, but will have some sort of like feeling for a person of the same sex, right? But like it's a moment in their life, and they've had this, attraction, but then otherwise not. Are they part of the bi community? I'm trying to like nail down like how much.
The rule is self-identification.
Self-identification. Yeah. Okay, so
you are bi if you say you're bi.
Okay, so then if they have had those experiences their entire life, right? So you've always been attracted to the same sex, but and the opposite sex, and always have been in a heterosexual relationship, but you don't say it, then you're not bi.
Are you attracted to more than one gender? If so, you can call yourself bi, and it would be meaningful. Are you only attracted to the opposite gender as yourself? You can still call yourself bi, it's just meaningless. There is no magical line where you're just objectively bisexual. That's not a thing, right? There's no such thing as some objective bisexuality, right? If you say you're bi, you want to identify with as bisexual, then congratulations, you are bisexual. Nice work.
Yeah. And it also is like there's the whole phase of questioning, right? So even you yourself as a person who may think internally, you may perceive internally that you're attracted to people of multiple genders. You could still be maybe uncertain about whether or not you want to open up about that, and just kind of end up hanging out with others who identify as part of the LGBT community and kind of warming to them and expressing even to them. You could say, I'm not really sure, I'm questioning, but as you hang out with people in the LGBT community, that kind of allows for the acceptance and allows for you to feel more comfortable with whatever it is that you're experiencing, and not having to feel like you need to bottle it up and hide it or doubt yourself, right? Now, one thing that I wanted to it's been hard for me to contribute because I myself am asexual, so I can't speak to these things from any kind of a personal perspective. But one thing that I can definitely talk about is how I have run into the issue where I feel like there's pretty much no representation for asexual people in the LGBT plus community. And one of the problems I've run into is that so much of the LGBT community revolves around sex, regardless of what is being specifically represented. Even with trans people, so much of the community revolves around sexuality. And so it does make things a little bit like there's almost like a wall for those of us who are asexual. And I feel like I have difficulty getting getting purchase in the community. And there's certain experiences I've had that just make me feel as though, because I don't have sexual experiences, that oftentimes my input and position are kind of left out and disregarded at times. It's not always so bad, but I've run into that issue a lot because of how much things that the original foundations of the movement had a lot to do with in addition to gender liberation, but also sexual liberation was sort of the centerpiece of it, right? And that does create an undertone that's pretty consistent in the community. And when you have someone who just simply does not identify with that at all, it does create some barriers that are hard to break past. I figured I'd bring that up.
Well, because I know that there's a lot of like asexual and aromantic erasure in the community too. Like we've talked about, the big two are you're gay or you're a lesbian, and everybody else is kind of shunted off to the side. But it's just like I feel like the sexual liberation does kind of go towards asexual too, because being asexual is going outside the heteronormative of finding somebody, dating somebody, marrying somebody, having children, settling down, and living your life. Like, you can be asexual, but you can still be in love with somebody. Just because you don't want to have sex with a person doesn't mean you can't love them. So it's just like having these different standards of what a relationship can look like is, I feel like, a very important base of the LGBTQ community.
Yes.
It's just...
Go ahead, Foon.
So I have a personal account with regards to that. I am not consistently like asexual. It's just someone else who was asexual kind of described it like you otherwise don't experience it. But there are very rare cases where like you will do it with that person, and then like that's it. So like with my partner, basically, I just won't be in the mood, and I just want to play games instead. And sometimes it's like they don't mean to be, mean, but it's like after a while it gets upsetting because it goes on for such a long time. Like I'm just not in the mood for like 3 months. So, Alex, I'm just laughing at you. I'm done. I really want to hear what she says.
Yeah, but whatever you did, you fixed your mic. We can hear you now. Were you talking in the wrong part of the mic?
No.
Okay. Because you moved it below you, and it's now it's working. So okay, well whatever.
Great.
Anyway,
You sound much better.
Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
You sound good now. You sound really good. It's so funny, Foon, because literally you just said exactly what I've been wanting to say. So I also am. I think it's what that's described as gray asexual. So it's like so it's like a mixture for me. So yeah, it's been 3 months, and I'm just not. I am more than just not interested in sex. I am disgusted by the thought of sex. So it's definitely an interesting like. Foon, I love that. I've never met anybody else who's gray ace and talked to anybody else who's had those types of feelings. So it's really nice to see somebody else who's got the same feelings. But it's definitely weird because like I'm bisexual, I'm bisexual, I would say. But like I have not only am I gray ace, but I have like varying levels of like attraction and sexual interest. I am not at all sexually interested in women, basically, but I am sexually interested in men. So it's like, even though right now I'm not sexually interested in anybody, but it's like it's always very weird. Like those types of like mixtures of things get treated really weirdly in like a lot of different communities. Trans communities are really bad about it, like really, really bad about it.
Yeah.
So.
Go ahead, Chaeiry.
Yes.
If I can just interject like my own experience with, I guess what could have been considered an asexual point in my life. It wasn't. It was my hormones. Not that I'm saying anybody else's is like hormone or medical related. But I did go through I went through so many phases of my life, not understanding that I had hypothyroidism, which is like an imbalance of your hormones and the inability to produce a specific type of hormone. But I went through like periods of like really high sex drive, and like it crashed I think like 4 years ago or something, or 3 years ago, where I had no sex drive for almost an entire year, and that put a really big strain on my relationship. But something that with medication has resolved itself, and it can fluctuate even once a month, when your period comes and stuff like that, where I don't know, your hormone levels also play an effect and how interested you are in sex. or it can.
Don't get me started on antidepressants and
Oh.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, that too. Mhm.
Yeah,
I
I've heard about
thought
that.
I like it as sex, but I don't like it as sex because of the drugs.
Oh, man.
Mamma mia. Anyways. No, but in general, ignoring whatever effects hormones and medications might have on things, sexualities, you know, and also your romantic status, those are things that are on a spectrum. Those are things that can change, just like gender. They are fluid. At some point in your life, you might think that you're one thing, and then you might think that you're another, or you're attracted to this at this certain point, and then you're not attracted. Sometimes we have trauma, and we don't want anyone to touch us. But that doesn't mean that we're necessarily stuck in one or stuck in the other. Or it could mean that you're like, this is just how I am. And no matter if someone says that they're just feeling that way in the moment, or if they feel like they know they're going to be that way for life, we should accept that. Because I feel like people just general society doesn't like change. So they're like, what do you mean you're gender fluid? You mean you're going to be a boy this day and a girl that day? That's not how it works. I don't know why I made them a New Zealander then, but that it kind of is sometimes, and I think the point is that we need to just accept that people are, you know, it's like, I don't know, you can change your career, you can change your hair color. Why can't you just say, I don't want to have sex today, or I want to wear a skirt one day, I don't want to wear pants at all the other day. I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
You get the essence.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's just the age-old same kind of track that we've been on for so long that we're like, I think that the community, the LGBT plus community, has just been like, please, please, all of these things are valid.
It's almost like gender is a social construct or something.
Right? It's almost like, who cares?
Bro, when you talk about bi-erasure...
Well, age is a social construct too, right?
Age?
What?
Yeah.
Shut us. What?
I mean, the sun goes... Time, yeah. Age
Time is a social construct.
Right.
No, Stardust. There is a time right now, and we all know what it is. And that's
I mean,
because of where the sun is, right?
Well, it's 6:35 for me. What time is it for you?
But
Okay.
I feel like time is like made by humans, right?
Star-
Three.
Stardust, what's the shape of the Earth?
It's round.
Okay.
Okay, just checking.
No way. Right
Okay.
now.
Let's move on to the next topic. Fawn, I think one day I want to have a discussion with you on the whole biracial thing, because I wanted to take this into a different direction. But
sorry, did you say biracial or bi-Eurasian?
Biracial.
Okay, yeah.
Biracial thing.
Absolutely.
Because
I know a lot about that.
Yeah, because we had an argument on All Black Everything about this, like a really big fucking argument about this. And I was going to try to relate to things, but we can do that some other time. Yeah.
What did you argue about? I'm just curious.
Well, we're not going to have.
It wasn't about the superiority, was it?
What? I'm sorry.
I feel like I heard something, like some people be like, yeah, it's like, you know, when you like crossbreed dogs, they're like stronger.
Oh,
so if you like crossbreed humans, they're stronger. And I'm like, where's my superpowers?
No, well,
I'm dying.
I've never heard that. I've heard more of you know, like they're just people are just more beautiful when they're you know, mixed.
Oh well,
mixed, but yeah,
obviously.
Yeah.
Like how
but then it ends up fetishizing them, which is another issue. But that's not what I was going to talk about. Yeah, I guess we'll discuss some other time, since you don't have any time here.
I'd love to. I find the biracial experience is something that I'm always up to talking about, because I feel like there is some common ground to be found with people who are biracial, no matter which two races you're mixed with. You can kind of always find like, hey, do you know this experience? It's kind of weird. Yeah. And I think that's fun.